Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and my guests today are Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show.
Please, thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, and founder of the network, Nick Paliveda. How are you, Nick, today?
Doing good so far, so good.
Okay,
Yep, yep.
good. So we are in three countries: U.S., Ken Regan, Nick in Spain, and I'm still in Canada, which I will
Uh-huh.
leave on Monday for 3 weeks. So, Ken, there are a lot of things happening in chess world right now, and one tournament is more interesting than another one, and it goes on. And for example, Nava, my wife, she cannot get out of the broadcast. She goes there and she's staying there for hours watching this brilliant tournament of Grand Chess Tour.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure you're also watching it. And Nick, maybe you sometimes have time.
Indeed, I'm not just watching it; I'm watching it. So,
Yeah, I know.
so there are several sensational stories from it. I mean, competitively, more than half the field was in contention for first entering this round, including five
Amazing.
people tied on 4 out of 7. Um, and the other story is that Gukesh, the world champion, is not among them, although he may be in the process of getting revenge right now against Levon Aronian.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, so let me share screen. I'll share it to a tab. He was, however, factored into what I think is one of the most interesting games from the tournament, which was a game in round 6 against the reigning world champion Gukesh Tamaraja as black.
It's a remarkable game.
So, I have in 10-2 games, another game, a key game from the Women's Grand Prix, which is maybe
Yeah.
the second major event that is finishing right now.
Hmm.
And there's an interesting story where Grandmaster Ju Jenner lost her first 2 games, then stormed back into contention with 5 wins in a row.
Amazing.
But maybe at best hoping for a tie right now today. And the Asian Individual Championships concluded. Okay,
Mhm.
but let's take a look at this game. E4, E5 is best by test as people play it. And this actually follows the old Gyoko order until White decides to play D3 rather than go into the deep lines analyzed over a century ago with D4. So we play this, and White pins as well. So this is a more aggressive and classical way of handling this kind of position. Of course, there's a lot of book here now, and Black decides voluntarily to cede the pawn structure to White, not with the bishop outside the pawn chain on C5, and Black having played D6. The pin really wasn't going to be contested, so Black finds the best way to minimize the impact of White's weakening the pawns. One factor here is White's queen is not close to getting into the king side into squares like H6 hitting F6. So
Very ambitious play by Black so far.
yeah, it is. It is in fact ambitious play. Black does have 2 very fluid bishops, and so they make a nice impression. And Black has potential play on the king side, as we'll see unfold. But White, on the other hand, has an advantage in development and classical play in the center. So definitely an unbalanced position. Here comes Black on the king side. And the engine does not like White's move. The engine thinks that light square play by queen b3 or playing knight h4 to stop what Black is doing with expansion on the king side were better strategies. And the engine thinks, so must be out of book at this point, that Black should have pressed forward on the king side, either by playing bishop g4 or maybe the most logically consequent move here, h4, even
Yeah.
though it's given as third best at the moment. So anyway, so c6 is a certainly natural move. White comes out with e3, d5. So Black is mixing up in the center, and it must be said this is risky, optically risky, because look at white's rook on black's king. So this is going to come back to haunt black fairly shortly. But of course, everything is tactics, and you calculate. And actually, after e4, black is doing okay. So h4. So now we're going to play on weak squares. Bishop e6, and now c4, again trying to crowbar open the center. But that also is a little double-edged because black does have the two bishops in this position. And this is a very strange position where I'm not sure. I guess it would have occurred to me that this counterattack resolves black's issues in the position, because taking this pawn turns out to be just too dangerous for white. You trade, and then queen g5, and then knight g3, h4 is happening. So it gets very grotty for white. And this bishop on this diagonal also is a latent threat. So white actually then has to oops, I'm sorry, that's the move that Firouzja played when I said things would come back to haunt him. Sorry, f5. So white, to keep the balance, has to play g3. And then this just becomes very double-edged. Let's play queen g5 instead of queen f6. Who knows what's happening? White plays queen b3. It gets very messy, but at least black is certainly in with chances here. Whereas instead, Gukesh played king f8, getting out of the file, but giving white sente, as they said. White got an extra move to buttress the attack on the diagonal c4, d5, and play possibly against b7 as well. Okay, so now white has a definite initiative. So there we go. The bishop comes out and putting more pressure on black's center. Black has to give way something. And here, however, white could have captured on e6 and then just bared black's e-pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Capture on e6 and then sort of ask black, how are you going to defend your e-pawn? Or knight c2. And then the reason why this doesn't work is, queen g3 check. Yeah, that certainly doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So black is hard put. Black is falling apart, basically. Black's rooks are not in the game. White's rooks are in the game. So somewhere Gukesh's sense of timing and danger abandoned him. But white also didn't crack the whip as much as he could have. And that's a very natural move, defending the knight. But the engine says black should have taken on f5 and allowed white to play queen g3 check. And okay, knight g6, why is that bad? Oh, it's a knight's with pawn's pinned, so it's not defended. But then just play here, and maybe black can organize a defense moves like this. So still a little scary, but it just says black comes out okay. So instead, this looks natural, but now something is overloaded here. So there just isn't enough defender of g6. Let's see, what was white? What was let's see. So black's point was that if knight g6, white's queen is under attack. Never mind. Okay, so white's queen is under attack. And
Yeah.
I thought that gave black a tempo to get it together, but apparently not. So around here, white is winning with 6 good pawns against black's scraggly pawns, but there always are some drawing tendencies in these kind of open positions. So here come so this now is another nice juncture. I meant to highlight this. So white captured the queen a little too automatically, perhaps having 1 minute left for 10 moves.
Oh my God.
Back to here. So I think Firouzja, in the press conference, I watched a little bit of it, referenced that he felt short of time in this juncture. But the accurate move for white is to play rook e4.
Yeah, defending d4 pawn and
Defending d4 and not allowing black some pawn structure cohesion.
yes.
At least now black doesn't have an isolated pawn on h5 anymore. So now white still has an advantage, and maybe white thought that rook g4 was winning stuff, but mistimed it because black gets to hit the knight, and now black gets to attack other things, and rook takes g4 just isn't as effective as white may have thought coming forward. Now black has a nice active bishop, okay, wins a pawn back, and here actually is where white's advantage disappears. I mean, white still had an advantage with h4 but well,
See, rook b4 was impossible because of bishop c3.
that's right. Yeah, that's also true. But rook c4, maybe, well, it's unclear. The engine's saying that black is probably okay. And now b5. Now this is a nice point. The back rank, okay, keeps black from losing a pawn. And black is now going to get to play b4 and anchor the bishop on c3 and permanently distract white. Okay. Now, Gukesh does make a misjudgment about the power of this position. So it is true that here white's knight is the best piece on the board. And you might say white's knight on f5 is worth a rook.
Yeah.
So Gukesh decided to play into that. And also black's rook on h8 is trapped.
Yeah. If it would be freestyle chess, black could somehow castle with his.
That's true. Yes, in freestyle black. Yeah, if black's king were started on f8, black could castle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the engine says to do what you were going to do, but play rook d7, a square from which it cannot be molested by a knight. But instead, black played this a little too quickly. And now that allowed white rook into e7, and that stops black from activating the rook as intended. So Gukesh decided, still with a fair amount of time left on the clock, to eradicate this bone in the throat knight. And now Firouzja in return made an interesting endgame misjudgment. Usually, when you are up in exchange, when you have two rooks against rook and bishop, it's to your advantage to trade the other pair of rooks because that gives you the only horizontal mover in the position. But actually, it simplifies too much. White's rooks could have been acting in concert and watching the pawn from behind, for instance. So g takes f5, and then rook b7 was the better plan in this position, but understandable that Firouzja may have judged that even though you've given away the f2 pawn, that this should be winning. It's only one pawn for the exchange. White has a passed pawn, and usually a passed pawn is a winner in any position where you're up a piece or up in exchange. Anyway, but it turns out that black has a very strong reply that Firouzja may have underestimated here. So by the way, let's note, white could have gone king e4. And the problem with that is that it does not ultimately do anything. So king h7, you might think white is making progress here, but actually not. So black.
Yeah, bishop on c3, really great defender.
Yeah, this is a nice little fortress on the king side. Yeah. So white plays king d3, which is hoping now to swing white's rook into the game and maybe wheel the rook around to b7 where it can watch the pawn and take part in the attack. But so black has to act, but black does in fact have a very good defense, breaking up white's pawns. And now this again is a fortress. So it's not clear. This game will be analyzed, so I haven't had time to really try to get into the thing of it. Black is, however, just going to wheel the king, and white cannot advance the h pawn effectively because white's rook is held in front of the pawn. So white decided to try to bring the king over to be an enforcer. Okay, black can't take an h4 because of checkmate. Well, black just, sits tight. What can white do? So Firouzja now short of time again because of they've got the increment at turn 40, but now there's no more increments coming up. Decides to bust black out of the fortress, sacrificing a pawn in order to win the b4 pawn. And now here is the crucial moment in the game. Okay, so it is true that often rook and h pawn fail to win, but they fail to win when black has the light color bishop, because then black's king is safe in the corner. So here black had to play much more accurately to realize that the bishop needs to stay in this long diagonal and the pawn needs to stay on f7 as much as it can, or as it can, in order to create a fortress that white cannot penetrate. White cannot gain control of the h6 square, can't penetrate e6, f6, g6. Okay, so bishop anywhere in this diagonal, even a1, is an okay move for black. It's not a losing move as in the last Ding Gukesh World Championship game. But instead, played the bishop that way, wanting to stay on the d8 h6 diagonal. And this is, however, now black can't retreat the king to guard the f pawn. So this f pawn has to move. So it moves, but now we've lost that part of the fortress. Okay, so at this point, actually, I should activate the 6-piece table base to see if white missed anything here. But I think that the game is winning for white, even if white doesn't play all the right moves. So sorry, let me go off script a little bit here.
Zugzwang position in a way.
Look that up. Well, there are some Zugzwang positions in end games have happened also this week. But let me just check this. I forgot to do this. Whether this is in fact winning for white. Anyway, I think it is. But let's just see. Yes, basically all moves win for white. So rook f7, actually, even though rook f7 is marked with a question mark in this position, it is the most effective winning move according to the actual table base. So never mind. So let's forget what Stockfish itself is staying in this position. This is a winning position for white for very simple reasons. So black shed the pawn, but it was going to get lost anyway. And the reason this is a winning position, the thing you want to know, is that with white's king on f7, white wins without the pawn. So white, in fact, gave up the pawn and forced black to take it. I'm sure that was gilding the lily a little bit, but king f6 is the winning move. And the basic fact is this tabia is winning for white. So white will eventually be able to skewer black's bishop for a checkmate. Black's king can't go to h6 and going to h8.
That's the only move, actually.
That's the only move to save the bishop for a move. But white is perfectly able to run the bishop out of squares. Now rook b4.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So, and by the way, if one little point here is if bishop d6, okay, let's try to stay away from the rook, then king e6.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The bishop. So chessboard is just big enough for white. Now king h6 does not escape. That's another big point. And Gukesh resigned. So an important game. While we're at it, let's take a look at the games that are maybe just finishing now. So let's see. So I said Gukesh, in fact, did defeat Aronian. So he struck back at the very end. And Praggnanandhaa did beat Wesley So. That was a very attractive game to look at about 10, 15 moves ago. and two other draws, and Firouzja maybe trying to join a tie. Now is actually at a slight disadvantage. He was nursing a small advantage when I was looking at the game earlier. So this is a game to look at. So let's see, are the results updated now for everyone? So Prague is there. So Firouzja needs to win in order to tie Prague for the lead in the tournament. And it looks like Caruana and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave are stuck a point short. Let's see, are all their, oh no, not all their games are filled in here. Oh, there's another round. I'm forgetting, there's another round.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So yeah, so there's still going to be great action tomorrow. Let me, however, show the end of one of the games from the women's Grand Prix. So let's eavesdrop on that. All 5 games are still going on.
Excuse me, I would like to add that we are recording this program on Thursday. So this is standing as it was on Thursday. So tomorrow, Friday, will be another round, which can change a lot.
That's right. So that is a good thing. This is the last round now. And yeah, and all the players are still battling it out in the 4th, maybe 5th hour of play coming up. So this game is, for a while, I thought that Anna Muzychuk had enough of an edge to press when the rooks were still on the board. Now I think this will be a draw. But there's still some things that Black has to be a little careful of, especially G6. And Maria Muzychuk was pressing, was down a piece. I thought her position looked very good, but it looks like it was good only for equality. She lost one of her pawns, so this is still could be a 3-result game. Kostenyuk also has managed to get an advantage against Zhu Jiner. That was dead equal for a long time, but it got interesting. However, the game I want to show actually is a game between 2 of the leaders that took place in round 2. So Zhu Jiner and Anna Muzychuk. Okay, so they've already played. They show tied for first in this partial rendition. I'm going to look at the ending of their game in round 2. So Zhu Jiner began with 2 losses. Wait, was it round 2 or round 3? Wait a second. Round 1. Wait. This game. Oh, against Tan Zhongyi. Okay, wait. I am misremembering which game it was. Oh, yeah. It was I bet. Yeah, it is this game. Okay. Yes. Okay. So there are several. Zhu Jiner losing in the first round against Tan Zhongyi, and let's begin it about here, where queens come off the board. So White is not losing this position. White has a D pawn compensation for the exchange. Black actually sees with the king sort of trapped. Black decides to trade queens, so White is reasonably happy about that. Okay, White maybe didn't could have found a better way to extract her king than happened here. Okay, well, White wins pawn, so we reach a very interesting tabia position where it's equal pawns, but Black cannot make a passed pawn, and everything comes down to can Black break through and infiltrate? If White had a dark squared bishop, then I think this has more winning chances because Black can eventually come through on G4. But with a light squared bishop, the positions with, say, G3 against F5 are often drawn because White can counterattack with the bishop on F5. So White can sit tight, but Black is going to try to run White out of room on the diagonal. And perhaps an unfortunate echo of the famous last game of the match took place right here, because the key thing that white has to do is not allow black to infiltrate on the e3 square, and this allows black to push white's king away. So this is the first variation to take note of, is that now white's bishop doesn't have many squares, so we can postpone things. We can play bishop in the corner, then rook b8, and now white has to go to f3, and now this check knocks white further away. So if white goes to the back rank, then black's king can come freely into e3. So the other alternative is to play king h3. Okay, but now black can also, I think, just saunter into e3 from c5. Okay, so that would give black a winning advantage, as happened in the actual game. But black played king c5, and now white manages to right the ship. Okay, but so bishop f3. Okay, now, but white puts the bishop in the same dudgeon here, perhaps thinking that. So what white should do is play king f3. Okay, so the bishop is not going to be trapped on a8, because there's b7 or c6 as air holes with black's king on d4. You could also play king e2, which keeps the king near the key square, or you could play the bishop all the way back to h1 and not worry. If black checks, white just goes king f3 and blocks it. Doesn't matter. White's king is just going to oscillate between f3 and f2. But bishop f3 looks like a natural move, but it's a losing move, because now black's king is able to come into e3. So if bishop e2, then king e4, Zugzwang. White has to
Yeah, exactly.
And now with black's king on e3, this is a winning position. And Tan Zhongyi converted, even if the conversion was not necessarily optimal. Eventually, so she's knocked white's bishop off of counterattacking the f-pawn. So now this is effective. And with black's king on e3, white cannot mount a counterattack. The f4 move is coming. And and here, Eugenia gave up. So, play with the rook and bishop, featuring at both marquee tournaments. Let's just look and see if anything has happened here in the main positions. No, all 5 games still going strong, although now it's clear that Tan Zhongyi and Maria Muzichuk will be a draw. Alexandra Kostenyuk is still pressing, and only one move. Not sure what Anna Muzichuk is achieving against Vaishali, a very great defender. And back over in Romania, there was one game going on. Has it finished? No, it's still going on. It's still lots to play for here. What
A very important game.
Very important game, yeah, just past the first time control. And, white's a pawn ahead. No, not a pawn ahead. Black has a pawn on e6. So white is better structure, but black is attacking on the king side, but maybe also attacking air. It's unclear. Maybe backdoor to white's king, which is a little exposed on a2. So anyway, so that's the state of play. And the other major event that was taking place was the Asian Individual Championship, and I'll just look at the results of it. And Bardia Daneshvar and Nikhil Sarin. Nikhil Sarin, yep, old prodigy. So maybe about ready to get definitely over the 2,700 level. Mm-hmm. And let's see, in fact, if there was any playoff between the two. No, maybe not a playoff. Sarin won against Bardia in the last round, so that took him down, and that may have been enough to win the tournament. So, okay, that's the state of chess.
Ken, thank you so much for your analysis.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking forward to next few weeks of all kinds of chess events, and it's just getting more and more interesting and exciting. Have a
That's
great weekend, and same to all our viewers.
right. Okay.
Bye bye.
Okay.